What's going on, everyone? Today we have the 5060 Ti. We're going to be checking out Indiana Jones specifically at 4K. Going to be going through all the different settings for you, see what you can expect out of this card at this resolution. We've got it paired today with a 14600K with 32 gigs of RAM. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. If you're not new here, thanks for coming back, and let's get into the game. All right, so at low settings, we're looking at about 54, 55 FPS with no sort of upscaling at all. So that tells me we're going to probably have to use upscaling, which obviously that's generally the case at 4K with almost every card. All right, so here we are. We're just going to come down here, and on low settings, we're just going to kick it over to quality and see what that does. If I can get the thing to cooperate here. All right, so this is quality DLSS, and let's see what that brings us up to. All right, that's much better. We're at 85 FPS. Now, I will say that quality DLSS looks really good, but at 4K, you could even go down to performance, and it still look quite nice. So as we go through these settings, I will probably start to rely more and more on DLSS just to make sure that our frames are above that, 55, 60 FPS mark. All right, so with that out of the way, let's just keep going here. So we're going to keep everything at 4K. We're going to come down here and turn on the medium preset. Now it does want me to restart, so I'm going to do that and be right back. So this is the medium preset with DLSS Quality. We're not doing any ray tracing that is outside of the ray tracing that you cannot turn off. This game does require a little bit of ray tracing, but we're not doing any path tracing at the moment. All right, so looks like we're at 9.9 gigs of allocated VRAM right here at 65 FPS. All right, so let's just jump over to the next setting and see how far we can push this card at 4K. Let's see what you need to do. All right, so let's go ahead and do a restart after the graphics got changed to high. It wants me to do another restart, so I'll do that and I'll be right back. All right, so right here at high, we're still around 62 FPS. We are using a little bit more VRAM. We're at 11.2. Again, this is just at quality DLSS, so high settings at quality DLSS looks totally doable. Again, we're not doing any ray tracing. We're not doing any frame generation at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and go through this little, area here, and I'll cut this out. All right, so we got through that little area there. Now we are dipping down under 60 in this area here, but on a title like this, that's kind of fine. I mean, you don't really need 60 all of the time. It's just nice if you're around it. So I would say that this is a nice setting if you don't want to go any further on your DLSS. But what I would probably do is come in here and go higher because I like DLSS up to performance at 4K, and you'll be able to get away with a little bit more if you do jump up to that. Now, this is going to restart. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to turn on some upscaling to balance to kind of like keep the test going to see it. Since we're right there at that 60, I think we're going to need balanced here. So I'm going to do that, restart, and then we will be right back. All right, so it looks like balanced DLSS is doing exactly what it needs to do. It's keeping our frames about where we were without it on the previous preset. So right here at 65, 62 FPS, we're looking really good. We're 11.6 gigs of allocated VRAM. And right now here are our settings. We are at 4K, of course. That's going to be this whole test. We are at Ultra Graphics Preset. And down here, we're not doing any ray tracing or any path tracing. There is some ray tracing that you have to do. It's just built into the game. And then our upscaling, of course, is set to balance. So let's go up again on our preset. Let's go to Very, Ultra, and then we also have Supreme. So there's a lot of presets on this title. So with that set that way, I'm thinking we're probably going to have to use performance, but let's just see what it does after I restart. All right, so right here at Very Ultra with balanced DLSS, that keeps us around 60 FPS still. Using a little bit more VRAM, 12.2, allocation at least. Our used is 10.7. This is the 16 gig version of this card, so just make sure that's the one that you are looking at. The 8 gig would be falling apart at this point. So I'm just going to come through here. We're going to skip this little cutscene, and then we'll be right back. All right, so that little cutscene has played through. We skipped it. All right, so we are still hovering around 60. Now, if I go up to Supreme, we'll probably have to go to Performance DLSS if we want to have similar frames. And again, this is with no path tracing or anything like that, but we're not doing any frame generation. So once we do some path tracing, I'm thinking that we're probably going to be able to get it back, to a nice, respectable level with some frame generation. We'll keep an eye on our PCL up there. That's why I got that monitor and those green, that green lettering up there in the top right. That's going to tell us what our latency is looking like. So right here, we're going to go up to Supreme. Of course, it wants me to restart again, so we're going to do that. And then I'm going to say we need to go to Performance at this setting. We'll see what that kind of does for us, and then we are going to restart and come right back. All right, so Performance DLSS with the Supreme setting gives us about 69 FPS here, and that is really nice. Now, of course, this is before any sort of path tracing. So once we start to introduce path tracing, you're going to see it really start to wear out our VRAM. I mean, like big time. That's why 16 is good to have. All right, so I'm going to do that now. We're just going to take a look at everything as it stands at this moment before I jump over and change those settings. So right now, this is 4K. Everything is as it's set here. Supreme graphics settings, so all the way to the top. Everything's completely maxed out as far as it can go. We're not doing any path tracing. Remember, this game does require you to run some level of ray tracing, which it is doing now, which is kind of impressive, but no path tracing right now at the moment on Performance DLSS, and no frame generation. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to turn on that very first level of path tracing, and we will see what happens. It's going to really tank our FPS, but we'll be able to see exactly what's possible here. All right, so 37 FPS. It does look quite nice. It's getting into slideshow territory, though, and we're at 67 milliseconds on our PCL. So if you did want to do path tracing, you are going to need to frame generate or go down to ultra performance. Now, ultra performance is a little too aggressive for my taste. However, this is a 5060 Ti, and we're pushing it to 4K here. So I'm just going to see if the ultra performance is noticeably blurrier or anything like that. All right, and that does help us get up to about 47. This is much smoother. Those, 7 or 8 extra frames per second really do make a big difference when you're this low. And I will say that ultra performance, although a little bit softer, isn't like immersion breaking, can't stand it. It actually looks quite decent. And of course, in this area here, you've got just tons and tons of textures. So it really helps that softness kind of disappear because you're in such a highly textured environment right here. So yeah, let's just keep going through here. Go ahead and skip this cutscene, and then I'll be right back. All right, so we are through that cutscene, and right here we are at 41 FPS. Now you can either lower your settings, or you can just do some frame generation. Now, I personally think that a game this slow does fine with frame generation. So right here, I would say that I would be pretty happy visually and performance-wise to then implement some frame generation. If you're not, you could go back to that performance, and that will give you about 40 FPS, but then you could still do frame generation on top of that. So it's up to you, really. I'm going to show you both. So what I'm going to do here is come in and go down to, or go rather back up to the performance setting. That'll give you a little bit more sharpness back. All right, so let's just take a quick recap here where we're at. So we, of course, at 4K. We are on the Supreme setting, which is absolutely maxed out. We have the very first level of path tracing turned on, which is medium. And then down here, we have our upscaling set to performance. Since we're at 4K, it still looks really good. And that gives us right around 36 FPS, 35. Now, what I would say do now is if you don't want to go to ultra performance, this is kind of the point in time where you're going to have to either lower your overall graphics or turn on some frame generation. Now, 36 FPS is higher than most consoles target. So if you keep that in mind, then you frame generate, you can think in your head like, oh, this is better than, an experience that I would be getting on a console. But, as far as how smooth it feels, it's not perfect. It does still look good. 64 FPS, although half of these are fake FPS. But, for the most part, though, this is a way to play it. You could go up to multi-frame generation and see how that does. Now your latency is at about 72-ish. It actually just went away. There it is. It's back 82. That little app is so finicky. It just vanishes sometimes. All right, so yeah, but down here though, I mean your ability to do ray tracing is just going to have some kind of like, concessions made, and this is one of them. Now, what you could do is leave frame generation on and just lower your overall setting here. You could go down to like a high setting, and that will give you a nice visual uplift with that path tracing turned on. And without frame generation, I'm just going to see where we were. I'm going to do a restart just to make sure that everything sticks. All right, so this is kind of where we were earlier. So now that everything has like settled into place, we're at about 38 FPS with path tracing turned on, 41 FPS. So the difference between Supreme and high is about 5 or 6 FPS or so. I'll leave that up to you if you think that's worth it or not. So what I would probably do is just say that you could go ahead and max it out to Supreme if you're going to use multi-frame generation. But let's come in here and do a 2x frame gen and see how that feels. If I can find it, let's see, where is that? There it is, frame generation. All right, so 2x frame generation, high preset with medium path tracing, that gives you about 62 FPS. I will say, like if you do want to do path tracing, it's not going to be near as smooth as if you didn't do path tracing, which I know I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but once you're at about 60 FPS or so, or 50 or so FPS, frame generation really is just icing on the cake. It's really not great for getting a 30 FPS experience to run at 55 or 60. You can just kind of tell. And that's indicative up there of our PCL. I mean, my PCL monitor is giving me 75 milliseconds right now, and about 80 is where my tolerance lies. So as long as it's under 80, I feel like it is something that I can live with. I like to be around 50 or under, but 80 is okay. So that's where we're at here, and that gives us about 60 FPS. So how I would probably run this title, to be honest with you, would probably be just no path tracing at all. It seems to be best to just run it that way. But now what I will do is come in here and turn on a little bit more of this ray tracing and come down here and turn this off. So we've got more ray tracing set to high, and we are on the high preset here. And that gives us about 33 FPS. Now, if you just really love ray tracing, this is something, of course, you can do, and then do your frame generation and get your kind of fake FPS up. It's just more of like a way to smooth it out. But, honestly, at 30 FPS, it's playable. It's just not a wonderful experience. But what I would probably do here is come down and just see what, let's see what frame generation can give us. All right, so 2x frame gen. That's going to jump you up to about 53 FPS. Now, it is kind of choppy feeling. It's not like the most wonderful experience. So, again, what I would probably do is just not max out your path tracing and use like the Supreme setting, because the difference between low, medium, high, ultra, very ultra, and Supreme, however many different settings this game has, it's like a ton of them, doesn't really give you that much of a break. I think that Supreme looks better without path tracing than high does with path tracing, if that makes sense. So I would probably just come in here and run Supreme settings and turn your ray trace shadows off. Go down to your path tracing. We don't want full. We need off. So no path tracing, just regular old ray tracing. Performance DLSS with a 2x frame gen. I think that would be a pretty good way to run it. I do want to see what it looks like again now that we've spent some time out of it without that frame generation. I'm going to do a restart, come back. All right, so this is Supreme with DLSS set to performance, and that gives you a 70 FPS experience. Now this automatically feels so much smoother than 30 with frame generation to get up to 60. I mean, this feels way better. Just ditching that path tracing and saying, let's just use the built-in ray tracing because it still looks exceptionally good. And you got a 5060 Ti running a game at 4K. I mean, that's pretty impressive. You know, as long as you just don't use that path tracing, I think you'll be okay. Or if you do want to use path tracing, you got to be okay with frame generation. But yeah, this is going to kind of wrap it up. Hopefully I gave everyone sort of like a pretty comprehensive view of what you wanted to see. You know, that's my effort in these videos, is to give you as much knowledge as possible so you can make an informed decision about your GPU and hardware purchases. So if you have another game you'd like to recommend me test out with a title, or with a card, a title and a card, just let me know. If you're new here, please subscribe. It helps me get this boat out of the harbor. I'm trying to do this as my full-time, every day, give everyone as many of these videos as possible. So if you want to help me out doing that, that'd be awesome and wonderful. If you are not new here, thank you again for coming back. Your support means the world to me, and we will see you in the very next video. Peace.